Well, Razorback fans, I had a chance to go to Eric Musselman's house for the Halloween party with the Razorback basketball team. And I'm going to tell you what my experience is like and how actually really eye-opening it was on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I'm also the host of Out of Bounds. You can catch every weekday afternoon from 1 to 4 on 103.7 The Buzz and 103.7thebuzz.com. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. With new customers, get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Hope everybody has a wonderful Wednesday and also had a wonderful Halloween holiday, as I know a lot of you were out there celebrating and trick-or-treating and dressing up in costumes and whatnot. And so hopefully it was an enjoyable one for each and every one of you. But I had a chance, actually, as many of you saw on social media, and I explained it yesterday on the podcast, dealing with the Halloween party over at the Musselman's house, Eric Musselman and Danielle Musselman's house, and the experience that I had. I've actually just got back home from that. It's around 11:30 at the recording of this podcast, so I'm fresh off of the experience, and I wanted to tell everybody about it, not just because of it's like, you know, not in a braggadocious way, although it was really cool, and I'm really thankful for it, and it was an awesome experience, but honestly, some of the things that I saw, because as we know, it's always nice to kind of look behind the curtain of teams and players and coaches when we always see what we see in press conferences. We only get to see what we see in games and things like that. Don't really get an idea of what it looks like behind the scenes and even off the basketball court in a lot of cases. And so I was really thankful that Coach Muss allowed me to experience that because, again, the Halloween party was fun and there was a lot of costumes and all of that. So it wasn't just about that, but it's about seeing the team in the natural habitat. You know, I tried to stay back as much as possible. I didn't want to go in and be annoying or like try to get involved or like try to like, okay, what's the scoop on this guy? Like I wasn't going to do that. I just wanted to observe. Just wanted to observe, take a few pictures and hang out. And it really started with the Razorback basketball team allowing me to do my radio show yesterday from their facility. And so that was really cool sitting there in the conference room. And I got a chance to talk with Coach Muss and Coach Smart and Coach Brewer, who were all very kind to join me back to back to back. And if you haven't had a chance to listen to that or watch that, go back on the 103.7 The Buzz stream and check it out that way. But that was just a great experience. And I got to see him practice for a little bit. Obviously there was some things that I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, well, I saw this and that. Like it was just a common practice. And then we did the Halloween party. Now, I didn't go in with any real expectations. I had no idea what to expect. All I was given was an address and show up at this time at 6:30 and make sure you have a costume. That's essentially all I knew that was going to happen. So I get there, and it's an incredible, of course, a nice neighborhood and a nice area of Fayetteville, and I walk in and immediately I see a bunch of players in costumes and cars of ours parked around there, and I get in there and then the house, and of course Coach Muss is greeted me like a very accommodating and very hospitable person, as well as Danielle, and they start taking pictures, and so we take some pictures and get to see what everybody's wearing in costumes and laughing and carrying on and all of that, but we also get to eat some incredible food, which, by the way, shout out I'm not even going to sit here and try to say that his name because I know I'm going to get it wrong, and I want to make sure that I get this right because that would be awful if I did not give him the proper shout out. Dave Rich, thank you, Dave Rich, for the amazing food, and the pasta is incredible. So we got the chance to check that out and see it. But as I look back, I look at just the team. And I see a bunch of guys in their costumes and, of course, goofiness and having fun. But the camaraderie that this team has and just get to see them in their element. They're all having a good time. I think every player was there pretty much, for Razorback Basketball. You had the staff there. You had coaches there. Not everybody was dressed up. Some of the coaches and some of the staff were just there to hang out. But being able to see them and interacting with one another and the activities that they did was really impressive. And just hearing the jokes that they made and cutting up and laughing and having a good time and, making fun of each other and talking trash to each other, but doing it all in a lot of fun ways was really cool. And one of the things that we ended up doing is that we ended up just going to a few houses to trick or treat, which was hysterical to me because they go out there and as the team, you got some people just sitting there in their house waiting on trick or treaters to show up, and all of a sudden the 2023-2024 Razorback basketball team and coaching staff shows up, says, "Hey, trick or treat." And so it was really funny to see, and they didn't really know how to react, but I had a chance to look at that and to see how they just went about their business like it was no big deal. Some kids were coming up and going up to, "Are you the basketball team?" And, some of them made some funny comments. And I think one of them, I forgot which player said it, was like, "No, we're on the volleyball team," or something like that. But it was really funny. And, seeing the coaching staff all dress up. And when the trick-or-treaters came over to their house, to the Musselman's house, and they handed out trick-or-treats, or the candy and everything, it was awesome. And then when we got back to the house, there was just thing where Muss, of course, had a message for everybody and had everybody in the entire room, myself included, talk about what their favorite Halloween costume was that they ever dressed up in. It could be one as a kid or one recently, but maybe some stories behind it. And that was really entertaining and funny. And just to hear some of the stories, and just very much unfiltered and just a good time and a good little understanding and a good enlightenment of what goes on with this team. And so it was about a 2-hour deal. Nothing too crazy, nothing too wild, but again, everybody was very welcoming, very hospitable, and I got to talk to a few of the players. Me and Cade Arbogast actually wore the same hot dog outfit, so that was entertaining. But I say all that to say this because I just wanted to walk you through it. But as far as my observations go, it was incredible to me to see a team like what Arkansas basketball has this year, a bunch of new guys, transfers, make up the majority of them. Guys that didn't play with each other last year and probably never played with each other ever. In fact, more often than not, played against each other the past year. You had guys that were upperclassmen, seniors. Some of them, there's this last hurrah. It's their last year. You saw guys like Devo and Trevin Brazil and Mekhi Mitchell, who were on the team last year, that know a little bit about the process and know a little bit about like Halloween parties and just events like that with Coach Muss. And to see how it just gave the vibe of a team that had been playing together forever. Like there was no like kind of getting to know one another, which I know they've been around each other for a good amount of time, but just the entire chemistry that they had off the court, where there was no players and no cliques, like, these players were over here, these players were over here the whole time. It was a very cool thing to see. And looking at it from the outsider's perspective, I saw it as more of not only a bunch of players that enjoy each other, but also the genius of what Eric Musselman can do as a coach, where, as simple as it sounds, being able to have the entire basketball team there in his house with his wife for Halloween, and it being a very simple deal where they just eat and dress up in costumes and go trick-or-treating for a little bit. But for all of them just to be there for it and enjoy it, not feel obligated, not feel like this is lame, like none of that, just buying into it all. And Muss being a very relatable person in that regard. I just found that really fascinating. And it really opened my eyes as to why this team and why this program has so much success. Of course, it's about recruiting. It's about talent. It's about X's and O's. It's about hustle. It's about effort. It's about, strength and conditioning. It's about all of those things. But the real mastermind behind it all is getting a bunch of guys that, again, never played it together. Some of them knowing that this is their last chance, their last hurrah at college basketball, coming together for their final year, one last shot, and buying in completely. So much so that it's not just about basketball, but it's about them enjoying each other's company on and off the court. I really appreciated that, and it was cool to see. And I think that that's one of the things that gets overlooked a little bit, where so many times in sports, it's you want to win, you want to succeed, and every coach wants a good bond and a good chemistry. Like every coach wants that. Every coach will say that. But it's only certain coaches and certain programs that can actually pull it off. And winning that game against Purdue in that exhibition was awesome. Seeing what the team and the players and who they have that's capable was awesome too. But knowing that they're all on the same page and they give the same vibes and they buy into the same way and they enjoy the ride and they're enjoying playing basketball at Arkansas and they're enjoying being around the coaching staff and being around Muss as a complete and total unit. So I love the experience. It was awesome. And I hope to maybe get invited to next year's Halloween party. I don't know if I made that big of an impact, but again, just shout out to Coach Muss and to the entire basketball team and the entire basketball program for inviting me to experience a great Halloween event. As it was very enjoyable and very entertaining and very enlightening to me. So just wanted to pass that message along. Folks, score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 back in bonus bets, and you do that by having any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now because the app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads and player props and over-unders and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, I have a little interesting thing that I know Sam Pittman was discussing, and we'll have some Razorback women's basketball news because there was some crazy stuff going on there too. I know we don't talk as much about the women's basketball program, but it was definitely a crazy thing that was going on earlier today, at least or earlier on a Tuesday on Halloween. But one thing that was being put together and being reported is that Sam Pittman and the Razorback football team have closed practices. And a lot of you are like, well, yeah, they always had practices closed. Like, that's what's the big deal of that? Well, yeah, but there's a little bit of a difference now because at least there were times where the media would have a chance to look at certain players and during the warm-ups or the stretch or the first 20 minutes of practice and get an idea of kind of like who's healthy, who's not healthy, who's in a boot, who's not. Like that's kind of happened all year long. But that wasn't the case in this particular week because Sam Pittman said that he had elected to close practices for a variety of reasons. And I think the offense and Kenny Guyton and trying to put that together is probably a big part of it. But Sam Pittman said that, quote, "We've had plenty of distractions. I'm just trying to play it close. I'm just trying to close it in and make it about us this week, to be honest with you. I don't have a problem with y'all coming to practice at all. It's something with Kenny and his new role and things of that nature. I'm trying to take any added pressure that he might have off of him. We've got to do everything we can to put the best product on the field that we can. So I think with all that we're doing, we're just trying to make it about us, and we're going to kind of stay in the submarine this week." So that was Sam Pittman about closing practices. And a lot of people had reactions to this. And, you know, as media members, I get that you want to have as much access as possible. I mean, I'm not up there in Fayetteville all the time, so I don't get to check out practices as much as I would like to. But I get it. You want to have the access. You want to have the ability to check it out and see who's doing what. But I understand fully what Sam Pittman is doing and why he's doing it. Because this is a crucial time, as we discussed, for Sam Pittman. This is it. This is an era. This is a time. This is a place. This is the week where he has got to put it together. And he has got to make sure that his team is 100% ready. And any sort of distractions that may be out there, even if it's 20 minutes of practice with the media checking him out and seeing him stretch, he's going to do it. It's gut check time right now. So I don't have any problem with closing the practices, especially this week. I don't have any issue with it. You want to have every advantage you can, and especially with this whole crazy thing, which I'm not saying this is going on at Arkansas, but the crazy Michigan story with that kid Connor Stallions or whatever his name is. Like that's a wild deal, man. That's wild. So I get why he's doing it, but he's just trying to make sure that his team is ready to go and staying above water. And I've always wondered with coaches and whether they wanted to open up practices or not. This has been a hot topic. I've always appreciated if they did. I liked watching practices. I like seeing and knowing and kind of just being there for seeing what's going on. But like part of this thing with like the Michigan story is that there's always going to be people out there trying to get an advantage. However, I think that there's something to be said for like actual media members that the program knows and trusts. Like I'm not even saying this for my sake because, again, but say somebody like a Trey Biddy or a Bob Holt or Tom Murphy, people that have been doing this a long time and been covering Razorback sports for a long time, if they're trusted media members, and if you kind of set a little bit of a guideline of things that you do not want them reporting on, like injuries, for instance, that's kind of a common thing. I don't see a problem with that. Like there's nothing that, and I love all those guys in the media, but I think that they'd say the same thing. There's nothing that they're going to put in their stories and whatnot that people are over in Florida or whatever going to read it and say, oh, well, we found out. There we go. That's what we're going to do. When we see that they're running this type of offense, we're going to be ready for that. I think that there's a certain level of ability that you can have as a media member to be able to report on practices and whatnot. So I've just never understood. I thought it was really overblown. And to be honest, I think it's an excuse for football coaches and football programs to just be like, oh, we're doing this for this particular reason. But what it is that you just don't want to deal with it. You don't want to deal with the media. You don't want to deal with the media saying, oh, this guy looks like crap, or this guy doesn't look good, or this guy's not starting anymore, or this guy's not at practice. Whatever it is. Like, I think that's just an excuse to not even have to deal with it. But I always give a lot of respect to anybody that opens their practices, because I remember reading stories about Pete Carroll when he was at USC. That dude opened up anybody and everybody could come to practices. Watch them all. Celebrities, fans, whatever. They could come to practice and hang out and check it out. And I really respected that. But I just have a hard time believing that any sort of thing that can be done in practice, and again, I'm not saying you have to open it up like Pete Carroll. I'm just saying if you have particular media members that you know and trust and that you know who they are, then what's the problem? Like, what's the problem in bringing them in? Because I think it's just about access. It's about, connecting the fans with the team and knowing more what's going on. So I don't have an issue with it. But since Pittman's never really opened up practice much anyway, closing it down this week isn't a big deal. But I still just think it's an overblown thing that so many coaches go through when it comes to just, again, maybe not a free-for-all, but having some trusted media members. To me, there's no problem with that. We'll talk about this wild story in Razorback women's basketball here in just a second. But first, folks, I got to tell you, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and so much more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts are always guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the car parts you'll ever need at the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, so final segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Again, I know that we don't talk a whole lot about women's basketball unless it's significant news, but this was pretty significant news, I felt like. And I know that Coach Nabors has got his team ready. He talked about, even at SEC Media Days in Birmingham, when I talked with him, he was talking about how this might be his deepest team ever, which is saying something. And they feel really good about this season. And we know that Coach Nabors is trying to get to that point to where not only getting into the NCAA tournament, but to do something in it. But it was a wild thing where Jersey Wolfenbarger is no longer a member of the Razorback women's basketball team. She's a 6'5" junior from Fort Smith, and she participated in most of the team's preseason practices. This is all according to WholeHogSports.com. And she played in the exhibition trip to Croatia and in Greece, but she's no longer on the team. And it was being reported originally that she was entering into the transfer portal, which Courtney Mims of Pig Trail Nation, I think, was the first one to break that news, that she was entering into the transfer portal, but the portal's closed, but she still can be in there. But then people were saying that maybe she withdrew her name, but it's still being reported that she's no longer on the team. And the timing is so weird. We're talking about that they're about to start the season on November 7th, like next week. They're going to start the season, and this is what happened to Jersey Wolfenbarger. So apparently March 18th is the day it opens up. She averaged 5.5 points, about 4 rebounds, and about 19 minutes over a 2-year career. And she was also named to the SEC All-Freshman team in 21 and 22. So she was a consensus 5-star at Fort Smith Northside. She was a great player. I remember watching her and hearing about her. She was the Arkansas Gatorade Player of the Year in 2020 and in 2021. McDonald's All-American her senior year. Number 7 prospect in the country, according to ESPN Hoop Girls and the recruiting rankings. So I just really don't understand it. And maybe we'll find out more. But this is the weird stuff that goes on. We talked about access and hearing from players and coaches and whatnot. But when I hear stuff like this, I'm like, what is happening? What's the timing? We'll hear more about it, but just so odd. Because now Jersey is going to she can't play anywhere this year. So she's sitting, I'm not saying she's wasting a year, but in a way she is. She wasted a year. So whatever it was had to be so bad or so important or so vital. And again, it could be something completely understandable. Hopefully we'll find out. But she's not going to play anywhere this year. And she's going to have to wait until next season before she can play anywhere else. So why? Why now? Go through the preseason practices, the exhibition games, traveling, and now you're like, I'm out? Stuff like that is always interesting. And she's not the first one to do it. We've seen timing for people leaving teams very odd and very randomly. I can't get, we'd all love to know why. And sometimes it's for a good reason, and sometimes maybe not so much. But hopefully whatever it is, it doesn't end up being too serious. But it's just the transfer portal is a wild deal. And I still think they need to shorten the window in all the sports. You need to shorten the window. I felt like, and you can disagree, but I felt like it needs to be a 2-week deal each semester. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the fall semester and towards the end of the spring semester, or at least in the major sports. Again, I don't know if there's a certain way you could do it, but for football, I'd like to see it as soon as the regular season comes to an end. 2 weeks. That's all you get. And then do it again in March, of the next year. Where that way college basketball can do it. I guess college baseball could technically do it, even though their season's later. The point, I guess it doesn't matter because then they can just transfer out because of the deal with the school year ending. But the point is there's got to be a better way of doing it. There's got to be an easier way of doing it. There's got to be a better window for doing it. And, it was a weird story. And because the developments kept coming out where she left, but then she didn't leave, and then she actually is off the team. So I don't know, just a weird deal. But hopefully everything's okay. Hopefully we get the chance to figure out what's going on, and hopefully it's nothing too serious. But Either way, appreciate everybody listening in the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.